Hi. Hello, hello, all. Welcome. Okay, seems like people are still coming on in. It's going to be a full house today. Bryan, I am so excited to be chatting with you today. For any of you who don't know, Bryan Power is amazing, has the coolest background. I actually met Bryan Power at a dinner. I don't know if you remember this, Bryan, but it was at a people dinner. It was in California, I think like in the Bay Area. And I remembered you because you were like, "Oh, I got some war stories in my people career." And I was like, "How do we get you on the webinar?" So for Bryan, let me share just a little bit more and then I'll pass it over to you. Bryan is very cool guy. I love him. Also a proud Ethena customer for the past 3 years. So what a happy combination this is. And I saw the reason I ended up bringing Bryan on today is because I saw this amazing post that he made about an AI workflow he created between ChatGPT and Gamma for presentations. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's get you on this webinar. So we are going to be talking about all things AI and career-wise and how to use AI and leverage it to drive your HR career forward. I'll flag most of the questions were about AI, so we'll probably focus on AI just a little bit more. But Bryan, before we jump in, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Wow, Melanie, thanks for having me. I'm very excited about this. You and I shared the stage together at Transform, so I really enjoyed that. And I'm grateful you all are hosting me today. Um, I'm getting ready to update my LinkedIn to say 30 years of experience, which is really
Oh,
mind-boggling to say things
wow.
like that. So yeah,
Amazing.
that's where the Library of War Stories comes from. So I've led the people team here at Nextdoor for the last 7 years or so, and I've really spent most of my career in tech and in the people space. I started out of college as a recruiter. I was a recruiter before the internet, just to continue to date myself. It's just relevant because today's
For
disruption.
the
I
internet.
know, pen and paper freaking
Wow.
hot books is what we called them. It was crazy, but it reminds me a lot. The AI disruption right now reminds me a lot of those days, and just number one, the spectrum of hot takes, like on how big is it, or is it a fad, or what have you. But anyway, like I said, most of my career in tech, I have worked in either recruiting leadership roles or people leadership roles at Google, which I joined right after it went public in 2005. I was at Square when it was a startup of about 100 people. And I was the chief human resources officer at Yahoo when Marissa Mayer was the CEO. Those are kind of like the four big organizations I've been a part of. But like I said, I've been at Nextdoor since 2018. A lot's happened. We all went through COVID together here. I became a dad while I was here. And yeah, seen a lot. Excited for today.
An incredible set of experiences and companies that you've worked with. I really like, we will see if we can sneak in a war story or just any story. I'm sure that people in the audience would be just so eager to hear about what it was like working at Google, at Yahoo, like just very cool. And also deciding, switching between larger companies, small companies,
Yeah.
different types of industries. I think that's something that a lot of HR people think about, especially me. I came from the media industry, so different from tech and startup land, like wildly different. And I prefer tech and startup land. So, but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't made the jump. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get into a little bit of that
Yeah.
today. Okay, cool. So for anyone who is new, welcome. You are in for quite the webinar. Please know that this is unlike most webinars. It is very interactive. You can already see in the comments, people are starting to chat. It will get wilder from here. We have hundreds and hundreds of people on the call, so it's going to be a good one. A couple ground rules for you all, okay? By the way, my name is Melanie Naranjo. I am the CPO at Ethena. We are a compliance trained company. And one of the reasons that we put these webinars together is because we realized early on that people leaders need community, especially when you're dealing with tricky things like harassment situations or psychological safety or this new AI world. It can be a very lonely position, or when there's a CEO, CPO takedown that we won't name. And so with that said, really the goal of these webinars is to, yes, share resources and knowledge, and also to build community. So please, I ask you and I encourage you, share in the comments, be active, share your own tips. If Bryan or I say something, you're like, I love that. And also, I have a better idea. Here's what I do. Share it in the comments. We read through them afterwards and we put out resources. So, with that said, this is very interactive. Here's how it works. I will ask pulse checks throughout the webinar so that it's not just me and Bryan talking for an hour. And I will call on people. Now, I don't want that to be a deterrent to your participation. So if you don't want to be called on, when you respond, in your response, put an asterisk next to your response, and that will be my cue not to call on you. You wanted to participate, but you didn't want to be called on, and that's totally fine. Okay? All right. With that said, I'm so excited about this topic in particular because I find that especially in around like summer and winter time are these lulls when people start really thinking about like, what is my career? What do I want? Is this really it? And so I figured it's time to bring it back. How do you level up your HR career? How do you figure out your HR career? Also, for everybody responding, I love you're already testing, you're already experimenting. Just a reminder and clarification, I'll need you to have the asterisk next to your response when you answer the question. Otherwise, I won't remember who put an asterisk in their response right now. But I love that you all are practicing. Well done. Well done. Okay, so with that said, what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about how to turbocharge your HR career, and this will be broad strokes, but then we're going to really focus in on AI specifically and how to turbocharge your HR career leaning on AI. In fact, we're going to have a live demo where Bryan is going to showcase this,
Oh my
this,
God.
yes, this chat. I'm going to give over a screen. This never happened in the history of our webinars. Bryan, you're the first. It's amazing. He's going to be screen sharing and live demoing how he set up this workflow and how he uses ChatGPT to Gamma to present really robust decks for his leadership team, for the board, for all critical meetings. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to drive agency and your own happiness at work, because this is a big one that comes up in this lonely field that we have chosen. I don't know what we were thinking. And then we'll do a brief Athena spotlight before heading over into Q&A. The Athena spotlight, by the way, also AI adjacent. We're releasing our new chatbot for compliance. And so very happy to be able to live demo it. Be thinking about any questions you would like to ask our chat bot, because we're going to test it live and you'll see the responses it spits out. So with that said, let's get into it. Pulse check. All right, are you all ready? Get your fingers out. We are commenting.
Yeah.
We are typing. Bryan, you and I are going to observe the responses here. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being super agree, 1 being hard disagree, how much do you agree with the following statement? HR professionals often get overlooked when it comes to things like career growth, motivation, engagement, and managing burnout. So 5 is, yeah, I agree. HR professionals are constantly overlooked. 1 is, what are you talking about? HR gets the best. Like HR knows. How could HR be taken advantage of? Ooh, okay.
Lots of fives.
Lots of 5s. And listen, we're getting a mixed bag, but mixed bag mostly in the upper end. I'm not seeing very much 1s or 2s. Bryan, what's going through your mind as you see these responses?
Well, I think the first ones actually thought 1 meant what 5 meant,
That's
but
what I think too.
I think we're gonna talk about it today. You know, I agree with this statement for sure. I would say this is a 4 or 5, definitely.
Interesting. All right, let's call on some people to get their take, and then we'll throw it over to you, Bryan. All right, somebody who didn't put an asterisk because I follow the rules. Let's do Linda Nero, Nero, Linda. If you could unmute yourself, and let us know, why did you respond with a 5 here? Why do you feel like HR professionals often get overlooked? And we'll give you a quick second in case there's technical difficulties or you actually meant to put an asterisk. And if I don't see you unmute yourself, I'll call on someone else. All right, let's try Hayden Geiger, Hayden Geiger. Hayden, if you could unmute yourself and share a little bit about why this was a 4 for you. Why was this so high on the scale?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you
Yeah.
great. Hi, Hayden.
Beautiful. Hi, I'm so excited I got called on for the first time ever.
Yes.
I put a 4. I often find, especially in the startup world, there's a lot of maybe managers or founders or CEOs that actually haven't had a lot of experience managing someone in HR. So they don't actually know really necessarily how to, number one, I guess, manage, how to, set performance expectations. So I think it's not necessarily a conscious decision to overlook HR professionals, but I think it's something that, is kind of like the last to be like the last position to be filled, the kind of back burner position sometimes when people are building out teams in a startup environment. So that's why I said that.
Oh, what a great point. Thank you so much, Hayden. Everyone give Hayden some love in the comments or with emoji reactions. Appreciate you sharing. I can identify with that so much, especially, if you think of the head of HR reporting into the CEO, who is ostensibly, and listen, I have empathy, the person who maybe needs the most HR guidance to ensure that they're thinking about their teams and their growth. Yeah, it's really tough to feel like you just have to advocate for yourself. Bryan, what do you think? Agree, disagree, have other aspects of this that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think people in the, on the people teams get overlooked. I think it's also can be a little tougher because so often this role or this team is like the support system. And
Mhm.
so you have to give a lot to your teammates. They kind of expect you to create a space for them to share or, everything from give them tough love to, get back out there. That
Yeah.
draws on your own source of energy, so the burnout and engagement in particular, I think we have a different type of tax
Yeah.
than other leaders.
It's not a perfect analogy, but what it makes me think of is almost like a parent figure, where a parent is a human too, and they have their own needs, but very often it sort of gets overlooked and it's sort of like, no, you were the parent, I'm the child, you take care of me. And there isn't that sort of like reciprocity of like, oh, you also are a person with needs who needs rest and recharge, who needs to be reassured that you're doing a good job, that needs to be thanked. And so, yeah, it can be quite overwhelming. I'm curious to know, you know, uh, what do you do about it? What do you recommend to anyone who's sitting here feeling like, yeah, that's me and nobody cares about me?
Yeah, I was gonna maybe touch on it on a later question, but I've really come to focus, particularly as I've gotten older, on the importance of my own personal practices and rituals that gives me energy,
Mm,
and what I've really learned is, I mean, this is advice for everybody, but I found when I get stretched or when people get stretched, they have less time and less energy. The stuff that tends to drop is the stuff that nourishes you. It's like exactly the opposite thing that you should do.
oof.
And this is a very simple thing to understand, but a very hard thing to maintain consistently over time. And so I would just recommend that, if you're going to be in a role, any people team role really, but especially when you're a leader, you've got to do everything you can to make sure your cup is full first.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, we are definitely going to dig in deeper then at the end because I want to make sure that people have clear,
Yeah.
actionable tips for how to do exactly that. Because I think we know it in our hearts, but to actually do it, so much harder. Okay, so let's jump into it all. I like to kick these off with moments of vulnerability because what I find is that the greatest barrier is often feeling alone. And so you're scared to say this thing that you're struggling with for fear of looking like you suck at your job or whatever. Let me stop screen sharing just so we can see each other's faces a little bit more. Bryan, my question for you is, I want to talk about a mistake that you've made in your HR career that still keeps you up at night and you just like really wish you could do over. And in the comments, by the way, if you all want to share stories, please do as well.
Yeah. So I shared this with you when we were getting ready. Um, I have a personal practice, which I've been recommending to more and more people, which I keep a note on my phone. And the name of the note, I have one for each company I've worked at for my last three companies, and it's called Mistakes. And what I do is as soon as I think I screwed up in the moment or the next day or at night at 2 o'clock in the morning, I just throw a sentence into this note. And it's really become like this learning journal for me because I just think you learn from your mistakes. The Nextdoor one now is like hundreds. I feel like I screw things up all the time. And so what I've learned is keeping track of it really lets me anchor on what I wish I'd done differently or would do differently the next time. So with all that is to say, like, it's a question with a million different answers that I could provide. But I think the one I want to do is going to sound a little cliche, but it's such an important learning for people leaders.
Yeah.
I can think very specifically, I'll leave the company out, but twice there was topics we were speaking about as an executive team. One was a product discussion and one was a revenue discussion.
Mm.
And I felt really confident we were not going to do the right thing. Just leave it at that without any specifics. And in my head, there was this stuff I wanted to say, and I didn't say it. And I ended up being right, which doesn't matter because I didn't do anything about it. And I think what I've really learned is I think it's almost more common to people leaders in other domains is we tend to shut ourselves down when it's not a people topic. And so you see this at offsites. You see a business partner attends an offsite or a recruiter attends the offsite for the team that they support, and they're quiet the whole day until it gets to like whatever the people section is. And so I just regret just not speaking across topics more louder and earlier in my career because it's a career ceiling for a lot of people to move out of their lane, but it's a really significant one when you're becoming a senior leader. So
Oh,
that's what
Bryan.
I say.
Okay, we did not script this all. Bryan didn't tell me what he was going to share. I am not kidding you when I say literally before this webinar, I was in a one-on-one with one of our co-founders and I was asking for peer coaching on exactly this because I was really questioning where I should be speaking up more. And I second guessed myself and I didn't say the thing. And I should have. It would have been a helpful contribution. And I want to acknowledge that, like, actually, why don't I ask you? Where
Yeah.
do you think that comes from? Why do you think so many people leaders have opinions, but they're just like not gonna comment?
Well, I'll give you a thought on that, and I'll also give you a tactic because a bunch of
Yeah,
people are asking like, what can you do about this? And I'll share what really helped me a lot. I think, people in the, people domain, like we're very good problem solvers. You have to deal with a lot of ambiguous stuff. You have to deal with a lot of emotions. Like a lot of the solutions are not linear or obvious. And so the more experience you get, the more confidence you get in solving people problems. But it's like this, it means you're a good problem solver. You can
yeah,
apply yourself to other problems, but for some reason we self-correct and be like, well, that's not an HR thing. I shouldn't
yeah,
say anything. But your capability in solving problems is really growing. You just need to start to think about different types of problems. What I did, and I got, what really helped me is I would just follow up with the person one-on-one after the meeting, either by Slack and say, hey, I had a couple of these thoughts. What do you think about this?
yeah.
And I thought I just was sounding like an idiot, but I remember distinctly this one product leader said, you have to start speaking up because your feedback is better than anyone else's. And I was like, and I'm not trying to like flex here, but like that was what I needed to
You did.
hear. I needed the positive
Yeah,
confirmation from the person I was criticizing to like invite me to participate. And
yeah,
he was just like, stop slacking me after, like just go. And so that I had built up enough kind of comments and observation that gave me then the confidence to be more comfortable. I would
yeah,
pair that with, because some of the people were concerned about this. You don't want to like overdo it either. I think you have to find your voice and be part
yeah.
of the room. The group should be solving problems, but no one likes the experience of someone who's just constantly offering their opinions on someone else's domain either.
Mm,
So you've just got to find the right balance. But I really found focus on working with other leader and you're trying to be helpful or you're trying to grow and learn yourself. And usually that's well reciprocated when it's private, and that can give you the confidence in relationship capital where it's less disconcerting if it shows up in the C-suite, so to speak.
what stands out to me, and you didn't say this explicitly, but implicitly, I do believe you said this. Call me out if you disagree. It's a fear of sounding dumb. It's a fear of wasting everyone's time. You're just a people leader. You don't know what you're talking about. Please be quiet. Now I respect you even less because people leaders are already struggling to be taken seriously. The last thing I want to do is make a dumb contribution. And now everyone's like, please shut up. Is that
Yeah.
fair, Bryan? It's a
Yeah, I
good
mean, I think, well, I would say this. And you have to kind of characterize the archetypes of other types of execs. I would much prefer staying silent because you're worried about sounding dumb than sounding dumb and thinking you sound smart all the time.
okay, yes, true.
Right? That's worse.
True.
So it's just about kind of getting
Yeah.
confidence up and finding ways to do that. It's going to be different for each person.
Here,
I think your relationship with the other execs is ultimately going to give you opportunities, and like make mistakes.
mm,
It's also true. You're usually speaking on behalf of others who don't understand. It's happened to me a million times where I thought I was the idiot and didn't understand, and no one understood,
yep.
but no
Yep.
one was kind of willing. It was the same fear. It's not unique to our domain.
Yeah, I have often found that people like people think the obvious thing is happening. It's like the bystander effect. You think like, well, surely somebody else is seeing this and they've already talked it through and decided that it was the right call. So I'm just gonna sit. This is too obvious, right? For them not to have thought through this. I'll share what has worked for me, and then I'll pass it along. Two things that have worked for me, not perfectly, because as I mentioned, even today, I had a moment where I was like, "Oh, I should have said the thing." One is, have just like I try to just like put out there, like, "Hey, all." First of all, let me just say, like, you all are business leaders. If you're on the leadership team, you are a business leader, not just a people leader. You're a business leader first, a people leader second. So you should be learning and you should be growing. And so I found it helpful to just put out there into the world, hey, all, I'm going to start asking more questions, and some of them might be dumb. You are welcome to tell me that, but I would rather say a thing and have it be dumb than not say a thing and have that thing be the thing that could have made the difference between us as a business making a critical mistake versus identifying there was a problem and going with a better solution. And it just
Yeah.
helps me to put that out there that, like, I have self-awareness. I invite you to give me feedback. And we move on. And then the second thing, to your point on balance, Bryan, I saw there was somebody who made a note that was like, what if you like say the thing but nobody ever listens to a single word you say? I know this is going to be tough to hear, but it has been just like so instrumental in my own happiness at work. I fundamentally believe that my job as a people leader and as a business leader, when it's not my domain, is to do what I can to help ensure that whatever decision the business leader who is in charge of making the decision, whatever decision they make is the most well-informed decision possible. I do not believe that my job is to try and force my decision on someone else. Because at the end
That's
of the
right.
day, right? At the end of the day, I am not the CEO. I am not the sales leader. I am the HR leader. And so I am doing my job by giving my opinion, and they are doing their job by taking that information and making a very tough decision that I do not envy them making, with all the various inputs that they have. They might be right, they might be wrong, but it's not my call to make. In the same way that I would want them to respect my decisions, I need to respect their decisions and disagree and commit. It doesn't mean I'm not going to speak my opinion, but it does mean that I need to know when to say, like, okay, I gave you my
Yeah.
opinion, balls in your court, without um contention, like without it being contentious or anything like that. Bryan, it looks like you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, no, it's a little different. I'm just looking at the comments, and
Yeah.
Nicole and Haley said something, the gist of which, like, they're getting signals they should stay in their lane, so to speak, or they're not taken seriously. And I have felt that definitely at various points in my careers as well. So I want to acknowledge that sometimes the reality of the team you're on is a big factor. My
Yeah.
advice there, well, I think it's an avoiding a mistake. And again, I've made these mistakes, so I feel clear on them. Is you're in a stronger position to influence across other topics if your topic, the people domain, is really in a good place.
Mm.
And I think if you have a lot of work to do building your team, or you're just dealing with a lot of stuff, the right thing is actually to worry first about your piece of the puzzle. And I've found, like, when I feel really confident in what's going on with the people team that I'm working on, then I can reach out to impact and influence others. But it can be frustrating for the executives you partner with if they see a million things going wrong in your area and you're trying to kind of wade into others. So you have to kind of be self-aware. And I'm not saying that that's what's happening with Nicole
That's
and
a great
Haley, but
point.
the lesson is, like, show value in what you bring to the table first with the people team. And once you really establish that, it's a building block you can build on. But if you
Yeah.
don't have that first one, it can really frustrate people that, you do have a primary reason for being there. And if that service or that team is not really doing well, you should spend all your attention getting that really, really up and running. And I've found you can build from there if you get there. Even sometimes with the people who fundamentally disagree, it would be unfortunate if everyone on the executive team disagreed. And you'll get allies and supporters from delivering the value you were hired to deliver.
Oof. Such good, valuable information. All right, all. I'm going to pivot us over to AI because you all made yourselves loud and clear in the registration questions. All right. Bryan, I want to acknowledge that there's been just like a little bit of tension in AI land when it comes to AI adoption. And so I want to throw that out there. Like, AI feels scary, AI feels overwhelming. CEOs are saying more AI, but they're not being specific about what that means and what success looks like or giving any guidance. And it's scary and it's overwhelming. And some people are feeling like they have no support. Some people are feeling resistant, all the things. And also, I think it's fair to say that AI is not going away anytime soon, and that it is probably to our benefit as HR leaders to get on the AI train. And so my question to you is, Bryan, I believe that you are in agreement here, as I can see you are leveraging AI. My question to you is, why is AI adoption so important in HR land? Why should HR leaders be on top of this and make sure that they don't get left behind in when it comes to AI savviness and knowledge?
Well, I think this, it's just such a big topic. I think the simplest thing is the way work is going to get done is is changing and is potentially changing dramatically. And so if you look at the people function, which primarily and historically is responsible for figuring out the right type of people to join the organization, how to go get the people to join the organization, how to keep the people in the organization. These are all kind of pretty basic topics. Now, what's increasingly obvious is there may be a choice on how work gets done. And if you've worked in technology, there's always been software and automation and new ways of doing things. But with the rise of agentic workflows, AI agents, it really seems like what's on the horizon is companies are going to have to think about two types of actors in the system, one people and one agents. Now, my personal belief is agents are going to be managed by people for longer than many of the CEOs are talking about. Like I really see like we're going to get to 80 to 90% gains, but not 100. And I think a lot of the really dangerous headlines are we're just going to automate everybody out of their jobs. I just don't, that last mile is so difficult that I don't think it's as quick as people want. But I do think this is going to give a lot of people the capability to do more meaningful types of work, unless you really prefer repetitive, manual, templatized decision making as your job. That type of job, you're going to get huge lift from AI
Yeah.
to do it. And so, because these things are now overlapping and converging, like what does the work? The people leader kind of is missing half of the conversation if they're not immersing themselves in a way to really participate in this. It's always been the case where the ITIS team has to think about what tools and technology, but it's never been such a clear, like, or an emerging choice of what type of solution you should do. So how work gets done is now a much more dynamic type of conversation than maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where it would be like, what type of rec should we open up for a person, or what type of RFP should we get from a software provider?
I feel like one huge plus one to everything you've said. Like, it's just the world is changing and we need to stay on top of it. If we are HR leaders and we are helping drive businesses, if we're thinking about people strategy, this is a critical part of people strategy, right? And so we need to
Yeah.
stay on top of it. The other two things that come to mind for me, I had sort of like a wake up call where I was like, oh, I need to learn more in the recruitment process, actually, because we were getting so much candidate fraud. Um, and it was the first time that a light bulb went off in my head. It took way too long. I'm like slightly embarrassed of how long it took. That like, oh, if I'm not on top of AI, not only am I not going to stay ahead of the curve, I'm also going to miss key risks at the company because I just don't even know what the AI
Right.
capabilities are, whether it be candidates or employees, like whether it's like an employee falsifying a receipt for an expense reimbursement, right? Like through AI generate, wouldn't have occurred to me that that was a thing that I had to be aware of. So that's one. The other thing is, I'll say, like we were talking earlier about, a little bit about just like your own happiness at work, and we'll answer this some more towards the end. But I have just found that it has been really helpful in things that I found energy draining. Like there are aspects of my job, to your point, like repetitive work, or like if we have a leadership conversation and there's notes from the meeting and we want to translate it into a memo for the entire team. To be honest, the least exciting part of me of that is me summarizing that and putting it into the right tone for employees. It is just so nice to be like copy paste ChatGPT, make this employee facing. Here's the tone.
Right.
Yeah, it just like takes a weight off my shoulders, so I have more energy to do the things I actually care about at work.
Yeah, and I think this is so if I think about my career, there's been like a few really big disruptions in tech. I mentioned the internet when I started my career. Certainly the move to mobile, in the kind of around 2010 was another major one. And then the cloud. Like these just so disrupted the way work was done. And AI kind of fits in that bucket. What's true in each of those is the consumer intent, like people in their own personal lives we're using these products so much that it forced companies to address this. And I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on companies' adoption of AI. And the example I use for those who were working, 15 years ago is like, I remember when when IT departments were like, you're not allowed to use your personal phone for work. Like that was a rule. You
I
were not
remember.
allowed
Yep.
to have
Yep.
any of your
Yep.
work on your phone. And like to think about that today is just preposterous that
Yep.
people would not use their iPhones, their Android phones to check email or Slack. But like so I think the resistance today on AI is kind of comparable to you can only use a company BlackBerry or computer to do work.
Yep.
Right? It's going to be the same thing. AI is just going to be so useful in people's lives outside of work that the workplace is going to have to embrace it.
All right. I know that you are hungry for more specifics. So, Bryan, I'm going to ask you a brief, this like lightning round question,
Yeah.
like 2 minutes or less, and then we're going to jump into a live demo. Um, let's get specific. How exactly are you driving AI usage across your teams? If you're a people leader listening in and you're like, but what tools, but what work streams? How are you as a people leader, as a CPO at Nextdoor, driving AI usage in your teams?
Yeah, so a little bit of quick history. I'll try to keep this one brief. Actually, around the time I saw you at Transform in March, I was really panicked with my team at Transform because I felt we were just behind. I felt like
On
AI.
AI already.
Well, I felt like a lot of people were panicked at that conference that people had been talking. It wasn't like we were, what is this? We're unaware, but
Yeah.
I felt like we really needed to be moving. I guess this is kind of the beginning of the year. And so when I came back, our leadership team really decided we need to accelerate company-wide effort on this. For those who don't know, Nextdoor is about 500 people primarily in the US, just to kind of size it. And we just 2 weeks ago had a major product relaunch. You could probably see it in the news if you look for it. So our company was totally focused on that. And we really weighed for a year. And so we really weighed the choice of adding another thing because you always, as a leader, try to get people to focus on the most important thing. And we just felt like this was really critical to get moving. And so we spun up a cross-functional team. I kind of raised my hand because I was probably in the best position, both given the function, but also because a lot of the other leaders were just really focused on driving the launch of the product. And so I think what I learned pretty quickly was a few important components. And again, you see this, other companies are talking about as well. I don't know how groundbreaking this stuff is you have to create a space where not just people feel safe experimenting, but you really help ignite these things. So we created a pilot training that I made up with a coworker using ChatGPT to just really kind of get sharp on what the fundamentals are. We then open that up to everyone at the company if they wanted to participate. And that's actually culminating with what's going on right now is a company-wide AI hackathon. And I think a lot of companies are following this practice of provide learning, create the space for learning, and then create these events where people can really work on it together. That's really important. I underestimated in our training how much people just wanted like a group session. I think for someone, my personal style is like I'll just go off by myself at night or on weekends or during meetings that I want to listen and just practice AI. But other people really wanted that group support. So that's really been a big unlock for us. I think on the tools, what's really fascinating is the tool environment, ChatGPT, Claude, like Gemini, these things are just leapfrogging each other so fast that we're just kind of like open up the aperture and see what's kind of working. What I've really noticed from our ITS team is like we don't want to sign long contracts. We don't want to sign multi-year contracts because it's just changing so much. I'd rather just go month to month because I personally have changed my mind from what I really want to work with, and that really seems to be the pace of disruption right now. Stuff is emerging all the time. And then I'm going to show you the ones I've probably used the most this past year is ChatGPT and Gamma, but we'll come back to
Okay.
that.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So then let me ask like what are 2 to 3 workflows that your people team is now leveraging AI for? And then let's do a demo. Let's show one of them live.
Okay, so on the people team, let's try to be so they're actually working on a bunch right now. I think one, as a former recruiter, I think is like paramount is, and again, many recruiters, and this was certainly my style, are talking to tons of candidates. And a lot of times you're like, oh my God, I have this candidate screen in 3 minutes. Who's this person again? And I pull up their LinkedIn and what should I ask them? And you've done so many recruiter interviews, it's almost just like a second nature. I think with this now, just with an additional 2 or 3 minutes, you can use an AI tool like Gemini or ChatGPT or Perplexity and be like, tell me everything I need to know about Melanie. And with someone like you with such a broad presence, I would be so much more prepped to have a 30-minute conversation with you. And so this is going to become something where I think it's just going to be a must do for recruiters. Like not doing this in advance, it's just a bad decision. I think how that happens is still emerging, but again, in 3, 4,
Yeah.
5 years, it will be must. And like I said at the beginning, I remember recruiters who didn't think they should use the internet to recruit. They thought it'd be a waste of time. And those
Yeah.
recruiters didn't last much longer.
Totally. Totally. We're using that. We're using AI in our candidate assessment reviews, not to make a decision. I promise you all that we're not making decisions using AI, but we set up a custom GPT. We tell it like, this is the ideal, responses. Here's how we're measuring success. And then we ask it like, hey, here's the candidate's response or their assessment responses. What are the pressure points? Where should I dig in deeper? Where does it seem like there might be misalignment between what we're looking for and what they presented? And then we just walk into the actual live discussion so much better prepared to touch on potential weak spots. It just
Yep,
speeds you up,
that's
Okay.
true.
I know that another place where you're using this is just to automate your deck creations. So
Yeah, let's do it.
let's do it.
Okay, so if everyone can just say a prayer, throw salt over your shoulder, whatever kind of gets the good vibes going. I'm going to share my screen on Zoom with all these people. And we don't even really use Zoom. We use Google Meet, so this should be an adventure, but I'll do my best to
You're going to do great.
show you how to do it.
I have faith.
Okay, so can everybody see my ChatGPT screen?
We sure can. It's
Okay,
great. And by
cool.
the way, as Bryan's doing this, pay close attention to how he writes his prompts because they're so thoughtful. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm going to try to weave in just a few lessons of what I've learned in using AI. And I think we were talking about before, and one of the challenges of talking about AI in a setting like this is some people are just really beginning and want to learn more. And some people really want to know, okay, I learned all that. What's the juice? So I'll try to go between both. So here's the situation. So I use ChatGPT all the time. One tactic I've adopted is I set up one-on-ones that says one-on-one with AI as a way to get me in the headspace of AI is like a teammate of mine. And I have a list of projects on every given week that I try to work through it. And it's actually been interesting to see the behavioral shift in me versus alone time to try to get work done versus having a one-on-one with a synthetic employee that will help me do things. So we don't have a lot of time today, so it's going to go quick. I normally do longer sessions, but I'll try to simulate something that I would do quickly. And so here's the situation. I'm going to put this in the chat and then I'll read it to you so you can see. So let's say I started a new job as a chief people officer with 500 employees, and I just started. I came from a really big company of 10,000 employees. And I have my first budget meeting tomorrow, and I realized that one of the things I've learned in my onboarding is we need compliance training. I wonder if anybody does compliance training that I could think of right now. But I need to figure this out because I want to put something together to make a compelling argument. Because again, I've got new peers, new execs, and so I kind of want to do a good job with this. And I personally also struggle with putting slides together, which is why I'm doing ChatGPT to help me with my thinking, and then Gamma to put stuff together. So what you can see here in this prompt is the first section is the context, which is like, who am I? What type of problem I'm trying to solve? The second thing is say, okay, AI, this is your role. And what I've said here specifically is I'm going to act like you're my chief of staff, and I want you to act like a round business person. I don't want you to let me come across as too HR centric. If you think about the conversation we were having earlier, I want to make more broad arguments, and I want to kind of use quantitative data if I can. I want to come across as a business leader first because I'm thinking this is like a first impression thing for me. Then the third thing is constraints. So I'm going to have a presentation with 3 slides. So like make it so I can kind of put it into 3 slides. If you don't do things like this, sometimes ChatGPT or Gemini will just run. They'll give you pages and pages. So the constraint thing is really important. And then the output, what do I actually want? I want this presentation that articulates why we need, it's just kind of saying this is kind of my goal here. Before I kind of show you what it did, this is like the number one advice I have when people start using AI is you actually have to unlearn Google. And what I mean by that is ChatGPT and Google have the same user interface. It's an empty page with a blank box. And for years of using Google, you try to go fast. You just throw keywords in and say, give it to me. It's like this, fetch. With ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, any tool you want, the longer you take to set it up, the better the output will be. But don't sleep on the fact that when you see that little text box, you're kind of primed for speed. So you have to kind of unlearn this. And these topic areas, like this kind of setting up a prompt is something we say, hey, if you do these 4 things, again, the context, the constraint, the role, and the output, it will help sharpen the output. So let's see what it does. Okay, so slide Now, why this matters, I'm not going to go word by word here, but you can see here's the header, here's some core points, here's the takeaway. What's number 2? Okay, this is strategic value of compliance training. And you can see these are like some pretty good general arguments of why we will want to make. There's some cost to implement, some guesses there, what this unlocks. Okay, where can we go from here, et cetera, et cetera. So now what I'm going to say is I'm going to kind of keep working with it. And again, this is also like, I could probably just take this and run, but I want to kind of make it better. So I'm going to say, actually, is there anything I can incorporate from the Ethena website? I really like them. And I send it kind of the Go Ethena website.
This is
So
my favorite part, by the way. Like
I
I
know.
always forget, it can literally pull things from websites, from LinkedIn, from wherever for you. It's awesome.
That's right. And so Ethena, good company, has a lot of the actual quantitative data we would want on why you should do this, why Ethena. So you can see Ethena has a 93% satisfaction rating. So it's immediately now grounding it, and I have a potential solution here. And so then what I'll do is I'm getting close. So, okay, now I want to say is we'll come back to this, but listen, I think the GC is going to be supportive because he's worried about our exposure here, but the CFO is going to question how much shouldn't we just do this in-house? And if you've ever presented investing in compliance like Ethena, the CFOs almost always say, why don't you guys just do this? 100% of the time. So now they're going to kind of take this proactive assessment of the resistance I think I'm going to see, and they're also going to kind of build it into the slides that I've made so far. And so that for the last prompt, I'm just going to say, okay, and again, I've done this a couple of times, so it should work pretty good. Here's some alternatives, and I'll say, okay, you know what? This is awesome. Clean this up and send me just 3 slides so I copy it into a Google Doc or plug it right into Gamma. So now what it'll do is actually take all that threaded work together, and it will give me kind of like, okay, here you go. Here's like the final thing that we've done together. Okay, so that's step 1. So again, with ChatGPT, and again, I also use Gemini, I use kind of all of them, just to kind of see the different ways I can test my own thinking. And some of the things that I did in here was make sure it's asking me the right type of questions, versus just answering my questions. So think like the general counsel, think like the CFO, versus just like, what do you think? And it can kind of take the standard perspective an executive like that might have. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all these like 3 slides here, and I'm going to go over to Gamma. So this is gamma.app. You can see kind of a few things that I've made here before, but what I'm going to do, and again, it's gamma.app. And so Gamma is an incredible startup based in San Francisco. And I can just tell you, if you're like me and you've struggled with putting slides together your whole career, for me, it's multi-decades, I have found Gamma to be a revelation. It's a very simple interface, and it does a ton of work from you. So what we're going to do is paste in the text, but you can also input PowerPoints. You can say, hey, I've got one idea. Can you just make this whole thing for me? And so I'm going to paste in the text. Again, you can see you can make social tweets or social media. You can make documents. You can make web pages. We're going to do a presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste the thing that I took from ChatGPT on it. And then it gives me a choice. What do I want to do? Do I want to generate, is this like a notes, rough ideas, and we want to put it together? Do you want me to summarize this? Or do you want to just create it exactly as you've written it? And I kind of want to see what they do if they add in their own kind of magical editing. So they're going to take this as inputs, and then they're going to decide what to put into the slide deck. So then you go to the prompt editor. And so it can kind of give me how much to edit. Like, do I want minimal? Do I want a lot? And you can see on the right side, it's actually made 3 slides, which it calls cards, slides 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to pick some other things. Let's do line art. It reminds me of Notion, great company. We'll do a black and white kind of theme. I'm going to add some extra keywords. I want to be sophisticated and contemporary. And then let's just let it rip. Let's see what it does. Okay, so we're like less than 10 minutes on this right now. It's still only spent about 5 minutes putting all this stuff together. And so now what it's going to do is it's going to start to render the slides. And again, if you're one of those people that struggles with what size should the font be, where do I put the text box? This is just kind of like music to your ears.
Yeah, so much cognitive load that it gets rid of.
Yeah, so listen, it's adding colors, it's adding tables, it's adding stuff like this, images, all this type of stuff. Right. So again, that was just in a matter of seconds here. And so we'll see how it did. So you can imagine me in the presentation, the first one, I'm going to come right in with Ethena. I've got 4 kind of quadrants that represent the 4 arguments I should make. Then, did I go too fast? Yeah, sorry. This is the first one. Now, if I had more time, Gamma would really let me help kind of make this Lex test heavy. I could add graphics. It really is pretty good. Let's just try to do that right now. So on this one, you can go just to their AI tool here and say, add a graphic that looks corporate, like law, because I want to show professionalism in seriousness and see what it does. So it's going to work on it.
It is very cool to see that it works so similar to ChatGPT. You don't have to be super tech savvy. You just have to know how to type in a command.
That's right. So now it's found a picture for me, great stock photo. And I can take this one and I can say, there's too much text on this slide. Can you simplify it? So now I'll actually use an LM model to shorten this paragraph so that it's a little bit less. And then I can also just kind of share, I can download this, right to PowerPoint or Google Slides, etc. And you're on your way, ready to go.
What I love about this, Bryan, is that to your point, you have spent under 10 minutes doing a live demo. Imagine what you could do with a solid, I don't know if you can see the emojis. You were getting tons of applause and support here.
Let me stop
Amazing.
sharing and come back. Yeah.
No, but like how amazing to think like this is what you could do with 10 minutes. Imagine if you had half an hour to like really focus, fine tune, think through things. And I love that you were being super intentional with like, what are the pressure points, right? Like think about it from the CFO perspective. Think about how I can make sure that I'm presenting this persona or I'm presenting myself in this way, more professional, more whatever. This is the context that I'm coming in with. All those things are so critical to making sure that you're delivering the right output.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I'm probably going to spend the same amount of time, but the time I'm going to spend is not going to be figuring out how to format the text box. It's going to be thinking about, am I communicating the right message?
Yeah.
I do think you've kind of reached, I think, what is a second really important learning obstacle to AI, which is it creates things for you so fast. We're all looking for ways to save time, but a bunch of people have said this in the comments. It's really important that you take the time to really make sure it's the correct information, because ChatGPT doesn't really know what I want to say. It can augment it, but if I just give it the pen all the way, and I might have been in trouble. It could misquote numbers. It could make up numbers. And so you really have to remember you own the final output. And it's a great tool to help you, but don't be like, oh, I did it in 5 minutes. Get the formatting and slide generation done in 5 minutes, and then use the rest of the time to really qualify your thinking.
I think that's exactly right. Oh, Bryan, I'm so glad you shared that. Everybody's so excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to experiment. Before we head over into our final questions for Bryan, I'm going to take a quick moment, as promised, to share something with you all very briefly. Our new chatbot at Ethena. Speaking of AI and wanting to make sure that you're leaning into it for AI for HR, because this will save you time. When you're looking at vendors, you should make sure that they are also thinking about AI and how AI can make your life easier. One of the things that we've rolled out at Ethena is a chatbot that comes for free with our platform. And what it does is you can upload all of your trainings, your policies, our off-the-shelf trainings, and you can have employees go here to ask questions instead of going to you if they have questions about the parental leave policy, the harassment prevention policy, what's our PTO policy, can I do this thing in this specific scenario? And so the idea is just to offload some of that, repetitive work on you and give the employees more agency, which is, I think, the future. So let's live in the spirit of live demoing. Can you all do me a favor and give me a test question in the comments? What kinds of questions do you get that you would want your employees to ask a question about? And for the sake of this demo, let's think like harassment prevention training. So I'll do a fake one while you all write yours. So we had one in the news that came up. So can I date my boss? Okay, here we go. Sorry, there was just an error with the last one. All right, so let's see what it spits back. According to the Code of Conduct and Ethics, relationships between managers and the direct and indirect reports, right, are not permitted. If two employees enter a romantic relationship, they cannot remain, they may not remain in reporting relationship, right? And so gives you information and you can ask follow-up questions, and it even links to the code of conduct that you input. So let's try another question. So let's see if anybody else put in any questions. Ooh, okay. I'm actually not sure if the bot will be what AI tools can I use that are approved? Okay, let's see what that spits back. I'm curious. I'm actually curious now. Hang on. I'm actually curious now to see if this is only populated with harassment related questions, but let's find out all. We're gonna live demo it and find out. Ooh, okay. So if you didn't upload a policy around that, it will just tell you, and then you'll have to go back to your HR team. Okay, let's see. Where I'm seeing one around maternity leave. Where can I access? Let's do one that I know for sure is here. Our employee hotline. Give it a second. Okay, you can access it by reporting concerns to your manager, the people, legal teams, or by using Athena's incident report form, which can be submitted anonymously, and then it links you to information again. So, this is demo stage. Obviously, this isn't an actual one. It would be populated with your personal information at your company, if that were the case, or your company information, not your personal information. So just wanted to show you how that works. With that said, I'm going to put up this, our SHRM and HRCI credits here in case that's what you came for. And while that loads, we're going to have a little poll for you all. And then after about 10 seconds, we'll ask some final questions to Bryan, and then we'll wrap it up for today. Okay. Bryan, one question I wanted to make sure that we asked you before we end the call is, what are your top 3 sort of takeaways or lessons that you've learned over the course of your HR career that you advise that everybody walking out of this call keep in mind?
Oh man, I was trying to think about this. There's so many. I think one thing I learned from Marissa Mayer, who's the CEO of Yahoo and somebody I worked with for a long time at Google, was, work for someone who believes in you.
Mm.
And that can be tough if you feel like you're not. I've worked for people who haven't believed in me, and I've worked for people who have, and it's a big deal, particularly in the people space and especially as the chief people officer. And so I think being objective about what do you think the answer to that question is really critical, because if they do, you can do so much you're not sure you know how to do. And if they don't, you could play a perfect hand and it still might not work out for you. So she said that in a really, really eloquent way that I thought was really good. Another one I learned from Sarah Fryer, who I worked with at Square and was the CEO of Nextdoor for a long time. She's the CFO of OpenAI currently. She has this expression she brought to Nextdoor. She's always had it, is to be people first. And that gets misconstrued by a lot of employees sometimes. What it meant to her was get the team right. Get your team right, get the vibe up, get everybody working in the right direction, and you can really do big things. And by extension, if you don't do that, and I'm just relearning this again on seeing someone who's just taking too long to get their team in place, and hiring is really hard, and getting it up and running really, really is kind of the first order of business. The third one, which comes to a lot, it gets into mental health, it gets into performance, a lot of things, is, you really can't grow unless you're uncomfortable. Like that adversity is how you create strength. And that can be a hard line to surf. Like when you take on a little too much, it can be really overwhelming, it can be stressful, it can lead to things like anxiety or depression, all things I've had to grapple with. But running from it means you're going to continue to lower your ambition. Sometimes that's a good idea. Like that's like what you need. But over the course of your career, really pushing yourself to do things you don't think you can do is what's going to lead to career growth and doing great things.
I love that. I want to make sure that we leave space for, you had shared something that was really, for me, stood out, this the importance of taking agency in your career, mental health, work-life
Yeah.
balance, anything there that you wanted to make sure we built space for.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I just recently rediscovered this author and business leader, Tony Schwartz. He's the author of The Energy Project and The Power of Full Engagement, among many other courses. I took his training 20 years ago, and I didn't realize until I saw him recently how influential he's been in my career. And his simple insight is there's only so much time. You can't create more time. You can only improve the quality of or create more energy. And so all of his thinking is around that. And as I've kind of, mental health has been an important topic for me for a long time. Before COVID, I felt like it was really stigmatized to discuss in the workplace. And I think COVID was such a global mental health crisis. It really normalized that topic for a lot of people in a lot of ways. I think where I am today is I want to broaden the conversation beyond mental health challenges, particularly traumatizing ones, which are very real and significant. But the other end, there's more to it, which is like really managing your mental health proactively and exceptionally well primes you to do the best work of your career. And I think that invitation invites everyone to participate in that topic, and that's one that's just become increasingly important to me. And it's something that Tony Schwartz of the Energy Project really has known for a very, very long time.
I think that's exactly right. And I love the way that you're talking about it as well. Because I think sometimes when people think about like work-life balance, mental health, all that stuff, it's sort of it gets relegated to like this one sort of aspect of things, which is like, are you taking enough vacation? Are you taking enough like breaks or time for yourself? And I will say for me, actually, that's not what impacts my mental health at work the most. For me, what impacts it is like feeling like I have impact, I am valued at the company, I am respected. And if I don't have that, everything like falls apart for me. I could work a 12-hour day and be so energized, or I could work a 3-hour day and just be
Right.
miserable. I've done both. And I found for me the biggest difference for like what really drives me to have better balance and mental health and all that stuff and energy is getting clear on like what my role is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
I used to spend far too much time fighting battles that were not worth my time. I used to spend so much time trying to force an idea instead of listening and being like, okay, that's my role. Like right now in this moment, my role is to listen and advise, not to enforce. And so I would invite everyone, if you are finding that for you, where all of your energy is getting drained is in sort of like the tension at work, I would think about what is the source of that and how can you change that to create an environment where for you it's not stressful and you're able to create some emotional distance. Not giving up. I still care so much, but I also have respect for the lines and the boundaries of like, oh, okay, this is balls in your court, not mine. Bryan, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Any final words for the audience before we end it today?
This was awesome. I just dropped my LinkedIn profile. I know there's a bunch of questions. We didn't get to all of them. Please feel free to reach out to me there, connect, follow, and we can continue the conversation. But Melanie, thank you for creating this space. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm like thrilled. Cannot wait to rewatch the demo. It's gonna be so good.
We
All
made
right.
it.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.